The moon of Varel was a quiet graveyard of war. The land was covered with dark sand and broken metal. Nothing lived there except the wind that screamed between the old rocks. Captain Mason Core, a human soldier, woke up among the wreckage of his dropship. His helmet was cracked, his arm hurt, and his radio was dead. The crash had thrown him far from the others. He was alone in a land that wanted nothing to do with life. He pushed himself up slowly, coughing through the dust. The last thing he remembered was the explosion when enemy fire hit their ship. His crew had screamed. Then silence. Now there was only the dry taste of smoke and iron. He checked his weapons. His pulse rifle was half damaged, but it could still fire. His water pack was low. He had one hope: find shelter before the sun rose again. The heat on Virel could melt skin. He started walking toward the broken hills in the distance. Each step felt heavy. The planet was quiet, too quiet. Then he saw something strange. A faint silver light shimmered behind a dune, moving slightly. At first he thought it was fire from his crashed ship. But the light moved again, slow and steady, like breathing. He crouched down and looked through his visor. The light wasn't fire. It was someone or something glowing softly in the darkness. His first thought was enemy. Maybe an Archi scout. They were the alien race humans had fought for decades. Mason had fought them in 4 campaigns. He knew their ships, their weapons, and their cruelty. But this didn't look like a soldier. He moved closer, careful and silent. The light came from a figure sitting beside a fallen stone pillar. It was a girl, or what looked like one. Her hair was white like snow under moonlight. Her skin shimmered like stars hidden under glass. She was wearing a torn robe of pale silver, and her hands were shaking. One of her legs was bleeding faintly with blue light, instead of red dot. When Mason stepped closer, she turned sharply. Her eyes glowed faint gold. She spoke a word in a soft alien language, then tried again in broken English. "Stay back." "Human." Her voice wasn't filled with anger. It was fear. Mason raised his hands slowly. "I'm not here to fight." I crashed. "You too." She blinked, confused. Then she nodded weakly. "My ship. Down. My guard's dead." Her voice trembled. "You will kill me?" He almost smiled, but stopped himself. "If I wanted that, you'd already be gone." He lowered his rifle. "You need help." She looked at him with surprise, as if the word help was something rare. He looked around for cover and saw a half-buried cave near the ridge. "Can you walk?" She tried to stand, but fell again. Her leg gave out. Without thinking, Mason walked over and lifted her gently. Her skin was warm, glowing faintly through his gloves. She gasped softly when he carried her, but didn't resist. He brought her to the cave and set her down on a flat stone. Inside, the air was cooler. The wind outside howled, carrying the sound of warships in the far distance. Mason took off his helmet and checked her wound. The blue light came from a deep cut on her leg. It wasn't blood, it looked like liquid energy. He took a clean patch from his medkit. "Hold still," he said quietly. She flinched as he pressed the patch down. "It will hurt," he warned. She smiled weakly. "Pain is not new." Mason looked at her again. Her face was young, but her eyes looked old, full of sadness. "What's your name?" "Lyra," she whispered. "Princess Lyra of the Archi." Mason froze. A princess? One of the enemy's royal family? That was impossible. The Archi rulers lived deep within the crystal worlds. No human had ever seen one up close. "Princess? Huh," he muttered. "You picked the wrong place to crash." She tilted her head. "You don't bow." He chuckled dryly. "I don't bow to anyone out here." For a moment her lips curved into a faint smile. It surprised him. He hadn't seen a real smile in months. They sat quietly for a while. He made a small fire with broken metal and chemical fuel. The orange light flickered across her face, mixing with the faint silver glow of her skin. "You said your guards are dead?" he asked. She nodded. "My ship was leaving the royal world. My father didn't know. I wanted. I thought I could speak to your people. I thought I could end the war." Her voice broke softly. My own soldiers called me traitor. They shot us down. Mason stared at her. You ran away to make peace? Yes, she said, looking at the fire. But no one listens to peace, he didn't reply. He remembered the battles, the burning cities, the friends he lost. He had stopped believing in peace long ago. But something in her words and the way her voice shook touched something deep inside him, quiet, forgotten belief that maybe things could change. The night grew colder. Lyra sat close to the fire, rubbing her hands together. Mason took off his thermal blanket and handed it to her. She hesitated before taking it. You will freeze, she said softly. I've been through worse, he replied. She wrapped it around herself, her eyes meeting his again. Why do you help me? He shrugged. Maybe because you needed it. Her eyes softened. Humans. They say you are cruel. They say you burn worlds. Some do, Mason said, but not all of us. She nodded slowly, as if memorizing that truth. They spent the night listening to the wind. Outside, the sound of distant engines echoed. Maybe her people were searching. Maybe his were. Either way, morning would bring danger. When dawn came, the first light touched the cave mouth. Lyra was still asleep, her glow dim and peaceful. Mason stepped outside and scanned the horizon with his binoculars. He saw smoke from his wrecked ship, and another column of smoke further north. That could be hers. He climbed to higher ground and used the broken cum unit from his pack. It still showed a weak signal, but not enough to reach orbit. He cursed under his breath. They were cut off. When he returned to the cave, Lyra was awake. She had removed the patch, and her wound looked better. Her body healed faster than human. She was tracing a pattern in the dust with her finger, a star-like shape. What's that? Mason asked. My world's symbol, she said softly. The mark of light. It means hope. He sat down beside her. Do your people still have hope? She sighed. Not much. They only know fear now. My father says humans are the end of all light. I wanted to see for myself. Now I see. Your light is different. It burns, but it also warms. Mason didn't know how to respond. No one had ever said that about humans before. By noon, they decided to move. Staying in one place too long was suicide. He helped her walk using a metal pole as a crutch. The landscape stretched endlessly ruined machines, half buried in sand, bones of old wars. They found pieces of alien metal, maybe from her ship. She tried to salvage some kind of beacon from the wreck, but the energy cells were shattered. We can build a signal booster, she said with sudden energy. If we combine your ship's core with mine, maybe someone will hear us. He looked at her with a small grin. You're smarter than most soldiers I've met. I was never trained for war, she said. I was trained to speak, to dream. They worked together all afternoon, gathering pieces from the wreckage. Mason repaired the wiring while Lyra guided him through her alien tech. She explained how the Archai used crystal-based energy instead of metal circuits. He listened, fascinated. She looked at him often, curious about his rough hands and tired eyes. Your kind builds with fire, she said. We build with light. Fire's all we had left, he answered quietly, as the sun dipped low. The wind began to rise again, carrying storms of sharp dust. They took shelter inside the half-buried cockpit of her ship. The panels still glowed faintly. Inside, Lyra showed him a small crystal sphere, glowing like a living star. This is my heart link, she said. Every Archai Royal has one. It connects to our world's core. If I use it, my father will know I live. Then use it, Mason said. She shook her head. If I do, his fleet will come here. He will destroy everything to find me, including you. He stared at her. So you'd rather stay stranded? I would rather stay free, she said simply. The storm outside roared louder, shaking the wreck. Mason looked at her with new respect. She wasn't just an alien. She was brave. He helped her light another small fire. The orange light reflected in her eyes. She looked at him thoughtfully. You are not like the humans I was told about. He smiled faintly. And you're not like the aliens I fought. They sat in silence for a moment. Then she whispered, When I was little, I used to dream of the stars. My teachers said they were cold, but I always thought they smelled warm. She smiled shyly. Now I know why. You humans. Smell of heat, of fire, of life. Oh, Mason laughed softly. Never heard anyone say that before. She looked serious now. And you, Captain? You smell of war, but your eyes smell of peace. He didn't know what to say. The words were strange but honest, and they stirred something deep inside him. That night, they watched the twin moons rise. The stars seemed brighter than ever. She told him stories of her world cities floating on crystal seas, songs that could move light. He told her about earth-green forests, rain, laughter. They both listened like children hearing legends. As the hours passed, their fear began to fade, replaced by something soft and human. But just before dawn, Mason saw a red flash in the sky. It wasn't lightning. It was a beacon signal. He froze. His visor confirmed it. Archi scouts entering orbit. He looked at Lyra. She was staring at the sky, too, eyes wide. They found me, she whispered. Mason's gut tightened. Can they track us here? Yes, my heart link. It still glows. They must have found its trace. He picked up his rifle. Then we move. She grabbed his arm. If they see you with me, they'll kill you. He looked down at her. The storm hit harder than Mason expected. The sand was thick, sharp, and wild. Every gust felt like it wanted to tear the skin from his face. He kept one arm around Lyra, guiding her through the darkness. Her soft silver glow was the only light in the swirling dust. Above them, red flashes cut across the sky, enemy ships searching the surface. They ran for hours. Mason's lungs burned. His suit alarm kept blinking, warning of low oxygen. Still, he didn't stop. Lyra's breath came in small, painful sounds, but she never asked him to slow down. When they finally reached the rocky ridge, Mason helped her climb behind a cluster of large stones. He dropped to his knees, breathing hard. We made it, he said between breaths. Lyra looked up. Her face was streaked with dust, her silver light dimmer than before. For now, she whispered, but they will keep searching. Mason scanned the horizon through his cracked visor. 3 ships hovered in the distance, their lights sweeping the ground. He could hear faint Humzarkai drones, floating in the air like metal ghosts. He turned to Lyra. We need to hide somewhere deeper. Any caves nearby? She shook her head. Only old tunnels. This world once had mines. Good, mines mean cover, Mason said. They followed the rocks until they found a narrow crack in the ground that led down into darkness. The entrance was steep and full of dust, but it was better than open air. Mason went first, helping Lyra climb down after him. They reached a wide space underground, full of broken support beams and old mining tools. Mason activated a dim light on his wrist. The place smelled of old iron and cold earth. Lyra touched the wall gently. These stones remember voices, she said softly. Your kind once dug here for metal. My kind dug for energy. Both forgot the meaning of peace. He smiled faintly. Maybe we'll remind them. They rested for a while. Mason gave her a small piece of protein bar, though she didn't seem to need much food. Her body shimmered faintly with light, almost like she absorbed energy from the air. He asked, Why were you really running from your people? Lyra looked away. Because I saw what the war was doing. We said humans were monsters, but I saw our ships burn cities with no reason. I spoke against it. My father called me lost. He said I smelled too much of mercy. Mason frowned. Mercy isn't a weakness. To my people it is, she said. But I couldn't stand watching stars die for pride. He leaned back against the wall, thinking, You remind me of someone I knew. My commander once said war only stops when someone decides not to fight anymore. She turned to him. Did he stop? He tried, Mason said quietly. He died before he could. They sat in silence. The sound of the storm above slowly faded. Only their breathing filled the cave. Then Lyra reached into her robe and pulled out the glowing crystal, her heart link. The light inside was faint and slow like a heartbeat. "This will keep calling them," she said. "If I don't destroy it, they'll find us again." "Then destroy it," Mason said. She looked at it sadly. "If I do, I will never go home. It holds my memories, my connection to my mother. It is the last piece of who I am." Mason hesitated. "If you keep it, you die. If you break it, you lose everything." She nodded. "Yes." He sighed and sat beside her. "I can't make that choice for you." Lyra looked at him, her eyes bright. "We already made your choice, Captain. You chose to help the enemy." He smiled bitterly. "I guess I did." Then she smiled too, and it was soft, full of light. "Then maybe we are both traitors. To hate." They stayed underground for hours. Mason repaired his rifle, and Lyra slept, her glow flickering faintly in the dark. When she awoke, he was still sitting guard near the tunnel. He hadn't slept in 2 days. She stood quietly watching him. The firelight made his face look peaceful for once. She whispered, "You carry sadness like a shield." He looked up. "Guess it's kept me alive." "But it keeps you alone," she said softly. He didn't reply. He didn't know how. Suddenly a faint rumble shook the tunnel. The walls trembled. Mason turned sharply. "They're scanning again." He looked at her. "You said they can trace the crystal, right?" She nodded. He took a deep breath. "Then it's time." Lyra looked down at the glowing sphere. For a long moment, she just stared at it, then pressed it gently to her chest. "Goodbye, home," she whispered. The crystal cracked, glowing brighter for one last second before fading completely. A faint wave of silver light spread across the cave and disappeared. Then there was only silence. Mason watched her carefully. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "Empty," she said, "but free." They climbed out after a few hours when the scanners moved away. The sky above was clear again. The twin suns were setting, painting the sand in gold and blue. Mason helped her walk to higher ground. From there, they could see the wreckage of her ship far in the distance, small, broken, and surrounded by smoke. Lyra looked at it quietly. "My people will think I am dead now." "Maybe that's the best thing," Mason said. "They'll stop searching." She turned to him. "And your people?" He gave a tired laugh. "I'll think I lost my mind." Lyra smiled faintly. "Then we are both ghosts." They camped that night near the ridge. Mason built a small shelter using pieces from his crashed ship. Lyra helped, her hands glowing softly as she fused metal joints together. When they sat near the fire again, she looked at him thoughtfully. "Do you think humans will ever forgive us?" she asked. He poked the fire with a stick. "Maybe not soon. But someday, wars always end, Lyra. People get tired of hate. They just need someone brave enough to start peace." She nodded slowly. "Maybe that is what I was born for." Mason looked at her carefully. "You already did. You just don't know it yet." The next morning, they started walking east toward the highlands. Mason hoped there might be an old human beacon there, something that could send a message to command. Lyra walked beside him, her legs stronger now. She looked at the sky often, watching the light move through the clouds. She said softly, "It's strange. I grew up among stars, but this small sky feels more alive." "Maybe because you're not looking down at others from above," he said. "You're walking with them." She smiled. "You humans speak like poets." "Only the tired ones," he replied. As they moved across the plain, Mason suddenly stopped. His visor beeped a signal. Not enemy human, a faint beacon maybe from a nearby survivor pod. His heart jumped. "Someone's out there," he said. Lyra tensed. "Your people could be," he said. "If I reach them, I can call for extraction." She looked down. "If they see me, they will kill me." He was silent. He knew she was right. Humans didn't take prisoners from the Archive. "Not after what the war had done. I'll think of something," he said. They followed the signal to a valley where a small escape pod lay half buried in the sand. Mason climbed down and checked inside. It was damaged, but the distress beacon still worked. He tried to come static at first, then a weak voice answered, "This is Command Station Alpha. Identify." "This is Captain Mason Corps," he said, "survivor from Dropinet Deltanine. I'm alive with one civilian. Request pickup. A voice crackled. Copy that, Captain. Coordinates received. Shuttle inbound in 6 hours. Understood, Mason said, ending the transmission. He climbed out of the pod and looked at Lyra. Rescue's coming, he said quietly. Her expression was unreadable. And me? He looked away. I'll think of something before they arrive. Hours passed. The sun dipped low. They waited in silence. Mason kept checking the sky for the rescue craft, his mind spinning. He couldn't hand her over. But if he lied, Command would find out. Finally, Lyra spoke. You have done enough for me. When your ship arrives, I will walk into the desert. They will not find me. He shook his head. No, you won't survive long alone. She smiled sadly. I already died once when I broke my crystal. The stars will remember me. Mason clenched his fists. Don't get to just disappear. Not after all this. Lyra stepped closer. Her eyes were glowing softly, full of warmth. Then what will you do, Captain? Will you tell them you saved? An enemy princess? That you fought your own side for me? He stared at her. If I have to, her voice softened. Then they will kill you too. Looked at her and said quietly, then we'll both be ghosts. Out. Before she could answer, a sound echoed in the distance, the hum of an approaching human shuttle. The sand rippled under its thrusters. Mason grabbed her hand. We have to hide until I can talk to them. They ran to the edge of the ridge where a small cave opened between rocks. From there they could see the shuttle land. 2 human soldiers stepped out, scanning the area. Mason climbed halfway down and waved. Over here. They spotted him and rushed forward. Captain Core, we thought your unit was gone. Almost, he said. I made it. One soldier frowned. She said there was a civilian. Mason hesitated. She didn't make it, he said quietly. I buried her near the ridge. The soldier nodded solemnly. Understood. Let's get you out of here. Mason climbed aboard with them, his heart heavy. From the small window of the shuttle, he looked back at the ridge. For a brief moment, he saw a faint silver shimmer near the rocks-like starlight moving against the wind. He smiled faintly. She was alive. When the shuttle rose into the sky, he whispered under his breath, Don't stop shining, Princess. Days later, Mason was debriefed on the orbiting station. He called him a hero for surviving behind enemy lines. They asked about the wrecks, the Archai activity, the lost data. He gave them everything except one truth.